Welcome to Using Your Teach Voice, episode 12. Today I was working on some session proposals to to present at some conferences this summer. And as I looked at my conference, my proposals, I always try to keep in mind that I want my sessions to be something useful, something practical, that in the end, when somebody walks out of my session, they've got something in their hand they can use, that, they can utilize something pretty much right off the bat. Looking back at my experiences with conferences, I feel that, how I approach things now are directly shape how I used to think of conferences. Because I remember as a young teacher, conferences just weren't really a thing to me. They just wasn't anything I really wanted to do. And when I did go, it was kind of a token thing. I did it to say that I was there to, kind of punch a ticket, so to speak. My name was on the list. I might show up late. I might do a couple sessions and leave early or something, I just really never got into conferences as a young teacher. Looking at those things and as I was working on my proposals, trying to be practical about them, I kind of thought that maybe that's why I never really got into them to begin with. Because, you go to some of these conferences you go to, they're all theoretical and big picture thing. Maybe they're inspirational, just trying to pump people up, whatever. But, in the end, you spend all this time, all this effort, and you don't really get anything out of them. The first conference I really remember going to was put on by a math and science group in Illinois. Our school had received an award, a grant, to do this 360 photography project. Which was really cool, and I mean, in the mid-'90s, doing 360 photography was just absolutely amazing. It was a math teacher that had got the award, but the grant proposal had to have a humanities aspect to it. And so they found me, the English teacher, the English and journalism teacher, was like, well, you understand photography, you can do the humanities stuff, and stuck me on there. This wasn't something that I had originally picked to do. I didn't really have any dog in the fight, so to speak. I didn't, come up with the idea. I didn't write the proposal. I didn't really know anything about what was going on, and I wasn't getting anything out of it. The science or the math teacher who wrote it originally, he was getting all the equipment. He was, doing all the really cool stuff, and I was just I was supposed to have students write little things that go with what these other people did. And, it just wasn't, it wasn't anything I was into. I wasn't getting anything out of it. And so when they sent me to this conference, there wasn't anything there for me. And I know that. Looking at that now, I can really tell that, there was nothing there for me. Like the other guy, he flew to Chicago. The conference is in Adler Planetarium in Chicago. He flew there the day before, spent the night. I wasn't, excited about this thing, so I drove up through the night. I went up in the middle of the night to Chicago, drove up there 6 hours. Again, I was tired, I was worn out, I wasn't, excited, I wasn't energetic. I think I even skipped lunch to go sleep in the car or something. I was so tired, but, it just wasn't anything there for me, and my attitude toward it was, representative of that. And I kind of think of some of the other conferences I went to and how, they tried to have a little something for everybody because, back then schools had a little more latitude with conferences and maybe a little bit more money. And so, people had, they wanted to have a little something for everybody. And you get there and there wasn't anything there for me, It wasn't anything there that I wanted or that I could really use afterwards. I think one of the first conferences that I remember going to that I felt really gave me something was a JEA conference, a National Journalism Educators Association conference. This was, I was teaching publications, yearbook, newspaper journalism at the time, and these conferences were about, how to teach journalism or about, how to, like photography skills, computer skills or something. I remember one of the first really practical hands-on session that I went to that I really appreciated was a Photoshop session. You had to sign up. I think we even paid extra for it. And, we went to a computer lab and there's all these computers with Photoshop and we sat down and, here's what you're going to do and here's a project. And then we went through it and then we practiced it ourselves. And we had this kind of time where we kind of like, what would you like to do? And Okay, this is how you would do something like that. What's something that your students were trying to do? Let's see how we can match that. And that was just really useful and hands-on and active. And I just really enjoyed that. And that's kind of in the middle of my career, my teaching career. I kind of saw those conferences and picked up those skills, and that's where I really started to see the value in these conferences. I guess now, kind of looking at where I'm at now, I've said before, I feel like I'm kind of hitting my professional stride. And so, I try to make my sessions not just useful, but practical. Not theoretical, not big picture kind of grand idea things. Like, hey, here's something you can do when you walk out. And so I really try to focus on those things. I also like that, conferences, and again, maybe it's just because I never really noticed this before, but, I think a lot of times, we pick these conferences that really speak to us. I've had really good experiences with the EdTech Google Summits. They're just so energetic and so, informative and very practical and very hands-on. And here's some really great stuff you can do. I've really appreciated those. I've loved going to them. I've loved presenting at them. It's kind of, you start finding those conferences that really work for you, that you fit into, it's the style or the content or the focus that you really, draws you in and keeps you in. I think I've never been to an ed camp, but I'd really like to go to one. Kind of what I've heard about them and understand about them. I think that's probably about the pinnacle of professional development conferences right now. If you're not familiar with an ed camp, and again, I have not been to one, it's just my understandings of it, so I may be a little off, but, you go to these conferences and you say, there's some broad outlines of what it's about, but when you get there, it's like, these are the things that I want to do. These are the things that I want to learn, or these are issues that I want to tackle. And then as a group, you find out who has what expertise, how can you make those things happen, and then you kind of break off and you go and you explore those topics. I think a lot of conferences are like really passive. Like they put on a show and you go there and you kind of pick and choose what you want, but it's really up to you to get something out of it, right? Ed camps to me feel like a very active kind of thing that, you show up, you get your hands dirty. What you get out of it is what you put into it. I mean, you have to put something into it to get something out of it. So, when I look at my sessions, that's really what I want to be able to do. That, here's some stuff that I've done. Here's how I've done it. And this is why you might want to try to do something with it. And then take that time to ask that next question, like, how could you use this? What is beneficial to you? How could you implement that in your class? I think for me now that, again, now that I've kind of gotten to that peak of my career now where I can kind of, see the value of these things, it's important to better ourselves, to keep developing our skills, developing our abilities. I think that's really important. I think it's also incumbent upon us to share with each other what we have, what we know, and our expertises. Because really, we get better as a whole. We as teachers get better as a whole by pushing each other and helping each other improve and excel and keep motivated and inspired. So I think really now that, I hope that young teachers do have a different view of conferences and professional developments than I did. I would love to be part of that, to help them see that, because I really think that there is a lot of value in it, and especially once you decide to put value on it, you start to get value back out of it.